Learning how to take notes and organize them can be difficult. I know from experience that this was one of the harder things to master in my higher education journey. Today, we're going to discuss how to organize your notes effectively. My name is Maria Hamill, and I am the Learning Programs Coordinator here at Veterans Upward Bound. If you have any questions or concerns or want to talk about workshops, please feel free to email me with my email on the screen here. All right, so today we're going to talk about different note-taking styles, some organizational note tips, and some note-taking tools. All right, the three note-taking styles we're going to discuss today are the Cornell method, outline method, and charting method. So no note-taking style here is right or wrong. It's really just finding which type of style works best for you. So feel free to take a look at all of them and then see which one you like best, and maybe try out a few when you're just starting out taking notes, whatever works best for you. And you can always tweak it to how you like it as well. All right, so first method here is the Cornell method. I do want to mention before we get started that the formatting for these next few slides we're going to talk heavy on the directions on how to do this type of method, and then we'll go into examples and what that looks like. So you'll see this here and for the next two styles as well. Okay, so the Cornell method discourages use of long sentences. It's kind of like an abbreviation type of method. And there are a couple different steps to completing this method. The first one is to record your notes during the lecture and write any notes in the right-hand column of the paper. You can see that I have included an example of what this note-taking method looks like. We'll break it down in the next few slides as well, but this is to kind of give you a nice idea of what the paper or the page will look like when you're taking this type of notes method. Step number 2, this would be the Q column. You are going to write any questions or main ideas after the lecture on the left-hand column of the paper on what you just learned in the right-hand column. The last step is to reflect or summarize all of the notes at the bottom of the paper. This is in that bluish purple area on the example on the right-hand side of the screen here, or the summary column. There's a bonus step of covering up the notes in your right-hand column of the paper and saying aloud the facts that you have covered up by the keywords on the left-hand side of the paper. So I'll show you an example of that, but this is the nitty-gritty, very wordy example of the Cornell method, and we'll break it down. So, as we talked about the first step here, this is on the right-hand side of the paper, or the notes column. This is where your main lecture notes go. You have a little bit more concise sentences, but you use abbreviations or lists. And you take notes in this section during class or during the lecture. Next step, or step number 2, is in the Q column on the left-hand side of the paper. You're going to write any main ideas, kind of like bullet points of what all the information was on the right-hand side of the paper. Any questions that connects points, or kind of creating study prompts. You're going to do this step after class when you're reviewing your notes. Step number 3 is the summary. So this is where you're summarizing everything you wrote above for kind of a quick reference when you're about to study for an exam. And this is completed after the class or when you're reviewing your notes. And this is the bonus step, so you're going to take your hand, cover up everything on the right-hand side of the paper, or step number 1, and using all of the notes that you took, or the main ideas in step number 2, you're going to try to recall as much as you can, of the notes in step number 1. So this is a really good way to help you study. So overall, that is the Cornell method. So it seems a little scary, but it is helpful, and if that works for you, perfect. Okay, next up is the outline method. It's the most popular method amongst students, but again, if it doesn't work for you, no problem. In the outline method, you typically use bullet points for your sentences. The main topics go on the left-hand side of the page, and then you write any related subtopics below that main point using indents. So here's an example of the outline method. You can see underlined here in blue, it's like a main topic. Indented below is a subtopic indicated in that yellow. Underneath any subtopics, you can put any supporting facts that you have learned. Let's say you have two subtopics underneath a main topic. You can also bring it back out and create another subtopic with facts underneath, and so on and so forth. So next we're going to see an example. So this is just a quick example I threw together of, let's say the main topic here is breeds of dogs. So we're going to have the main topic here as dogs. A subtopic underneath dogs are large breeds. Then I have indicated the different facts of large breeds, such as German Shepherds, Labs, Golden Retrievers. But I also want to talk about small breeds. So I have indented and created another bullet point for different types of small breeds, such as Chihuahuas, Corgis, Jack Russell Terriers, and so on and so forth. So if this works for you personally, this is my favorite type of method, but it's the most popular one. All right, third method is the charting method. And it's great for when you need to learn a lot of data in the form of statistics and facts. It's usually in the form of a table or a chart, and each column is a category. So this is an example of what the charting method looks like. You can see on the left-hand side there are different topics of the different topics you're going to be talking about. And then along the row at the top is different types of information per each topic that you want to discuss. So we'll go into an example here. So this is my example of a charting method of walking versus biking. So I first talked about the description of walking versus biking. So for walking, you use your body to move. For biking, you use a bike to get to places. So let's say, is this walking versus biking, is it time saving? Walking, it depends on the location. Biking depends on if a city is bike friendly. Then I wanted to see kind of what kind of pros and cons for walking versus biking. So for walking, it's great exercise. Biking, a pro is that it's great exercise and it's a time saver. A con of walking is that it could take some time to get to places. A con of biking is the city bike friendly? Does it have bike racks, etc.? So this is kind of for a lot when you're using a lot of facts and maybe even determining different topics against each other. So this versus that. Okay, let's talk about some organizational note tips. So first one is take your notes in the same location. And when I say this, I don't necessarily mean like a physical location. Sure, if that works for you, go for it. So let's say maybe you take your notes in a specific desk in the classroom, or you take your notes at a specific location in your home, or a specific place in your physical location. So if that works for you, perfect, that's great. What I more mean by this tip is that if you're using a specific notebook or a specific Word document for a subject, stick with that notebook or Word document for the same information. So you don't want to use your math notebook or Word document for your science information. So try to keep them as concise and together as possible. Number 2 is to date and title your notes. This just keeps everything concise and organized when you're trying to look back and review for an exam. So let's say you're in your science notebook and you have a couple biology classes, but the one that you're titling for today is your biology. So maybe you would put your biology class number 409, and then the topic that you're going to be discussing in that notes. So mitochondria functions, and then with the date. This just keeps everything concise. And let's say if your professor is in class and they're like, we talked about XYZ on October 4th, you can easily flip to that page of October 4th, and then you can find everything that you need. Number 3 is to store your notes easily. So using a specific binder or computer folder for a specific subject would be best. So kind of like keeping your notes in the same location, so that you can access your notes and everything is there and easily transcribable. Number 4 is to leave spaces between your note topics. So this gives you an opportunity to write any additional notes, thoughts, opinions, summaries after your notes for that day. Or let's say if the professor wants to add something back into the information that you talked about a few days ago. If you crammed all your notes into one page, then you might not be able to add any additional information. So trying to leave as much spaces between note topics is super helpful. And lastly is to use a note-taking method and stick with it. So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but if a specific note-taking method works for you, I would suggest that you try to stick with it as much as you can. Yes, you might have to use different methods per different types of subjects or topics. I get that. However, if a specific method just makes sense to you in your brain, why not stick with it? I find that if something is easier for you to understand, that information that you're also writing about may be easier to understand and come to you easier. All right. And last up for today is talking about some note-taking tools. So there's the classic paper and pencil. Personally, I really like the classic paper and pencil when taking notes. It just seems to stick my brain more. I don't know if it's the physically writing something out that makes sense, but everyone's different. If you like doing Google Docs or you like writing in a computer, if that works for you, perfect. If you choose the classic paper and pencil method when taking notes, I would suggest to find materials that you enjoy. So maybe you like a spiral-bound notebook versus like a composition notebook. Or maybe you like writing with a pen versus a pencil. Finding things that you enjoy can make note-taking, I guess, more enjoyable, as well as it just might become smoother out of you. Next, if you prefer using any kind of computer or typing your notes, I suggest using Google Docs to do that. Google Docs are free. You can edit them anytime, and you can also share your notes super easily with someone. So let's say you have a friend in class that missed the notes. You can share a link to the document and share your notes with them. And this last one is pretty cool. I didn't personally have something like this when I was in school, but I think it'd be really helpful. So there are different types of notebooks that you can purchase that are written text that creates digital notes. So the one here on the right-hand side in the photos is called Homestuck, I believe. And you purchase a notebook, a specific notebook by a company, and I believe they're pretty cost-effective. I can give the link to this one that I'm referencing here in the email of the workshop. But you take notes on their specific note, just like you normally would, written, and then you take a photo of your notes with your phone. You can then upload the photo into this specific app for this notebook, and it stores all of your notes into a digital format. And then you can access those notes on your phone or your computer. You can share them with people. And then I believe for this one specifically, you use Heat to erase all of the notes that you took. And then you use all of those pages again and again and again. And you can keep doing this and uploading their information so that everything's just concise and all in one area. So super cool. I didn't have this when I was in school, but I think that'd be really cool to have if that's something you're like. All right, that's all I have for today. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us here at Veterans Upward Bound through our email, website, or our phone number here on the screen. Thank you, and hope you have a good rest of your day.